The deity is very beautiful. Where did you get the deity from, Prabhu? Did someone gift it to you? Your wife gifted it to you. Okay, that's a very nice wife. But it's really nice to have the deity at home. I was just thinking what to speak about in terms of the deities. And I found a nice verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, which for a few minutes we should meditate on. Because sometimes what happens in devotional service is, we get deities, we get so much of mercy from Krishna in the form of the deities, in the form of devotees and association. But what is more important is, after getting all of this, how does it change our behavior? How does it make us better devotees? How does it improve our bhakti? This is very important. Sometimes in life, the more you get, the biggest challenge that you get along with everything else that you get is pride. And sometimes when Krishna by his mercy gives us so much of fortune, if we are not careful, we may not be grateful for the fortune that comes. And instead of that, if we are not careful, we may continue to be who we are, and we take for granted what Krishna is giving us. So this is a very important point. In material world, we always have markers to mark our progress. We have goals and achievements and KPIs and all of this. But we don't realize that in spiritual life, if we are not careful, we'll use the same material tendencies and bring them into the spiritual world. We will think that we are better devotees because we have this, because we have that. And in that way, we will not see the hand of Krishna. Very often devotees have this idea also, that if I take up bhakti, my children must do very well, my husband must get a promotion, we will move to a new house, everything will be perfect and everything will be nice. And the moment something is not nice in our lives, then that moment we actually lose faith in Krishna. And we think, nah, this is not bhakti. But actually bhakti means, bhakti has nothing to do with all these material things that are coming. We often get mixed up. We think that when we have bhakti, material happiness should follow. No. We are highly mistaken if we think that. Tasyeva heto prayateta kovido na labhyate yat pramata upariyadha. So it is stated in Bhagavatam that actually happiness and distress, they come on their own accord. Whether or not you're devotee or you're not devotee, the happiness and distress of the material world will keep coming and going just like waves. They don't stop. They don't stop. But the difference between a devotee and a materialist is that the devotee learns to understand that the nature of the happiness and the nature of the material miseries are actually temporary. That is the fine distinction between a devotee and a non-devotee. A non-devotee, generally the idea is, if we pray to a deity, we think the deity must give us material opulences. That means our behavior and our relationship with the deity is very transactional. You give me something and I'll be with you. If you don't give me something, then why should I be with you? That is the materialist way of thinking. All the great demons of the material world, the Hiranyakashipus, the Ravanas, they were thinking that way. They were thinking, what can I get from the Supreme Personality of Godhead? And if I cannot get it from Him, I will destroy Him. Or I will be envious of Him. So please, we must remember that when we take up devotional service, a devotee who really is moving towards pure devotional service must be very careful to reflect it in their behavior. In their behavior. If we really want to please the deities, it is not the material things that we have that will please them. Why? Because those material things don't even belong to you and me. The things are all actually coming from Krishna. Ishavasyam idam sarvam. Krishna says everything that is animate and inanimate, they're all coming from me. Therefore, if they're all coming from Krishna, what is there that you and I possess that actually belong to us? Nothing. If we could possess something that really truly belonged to us, then at the point of death we should take that thing with us also. And at the point of birth, we should already have something with us. We have come with nothing, and nobody leaves with anything. They will leave with nothing. Even the sharir, you cannot take with you. The sharir is either burnt, it is cremated, or it is buried. But it is never going to follow you. So with all the wealth and the opulence that we have, we forget that has nothing to do with devotional service. So the first point we must understand when we want to worship deities and we want to be serious in devotional service, don't make bhakti into a social event. Please don't. Don't think that this can replace a social event. It is not meant to replace a social event because it is a spiritual occasion. Spiritual occasion. That's why when devotees come, they are coming to hear about the temporary nature of this material world. And the person who is most compassionate are the devotees who tell it to us on our faces, straightforwardly. In Bhagavatam, that is known as kutharam. Kutharam means X. It cuts through. The mercy of a devotee is that the devotee will never compromise on telling you what is the truth, and he will never sugarcoat the truth. And the truth is, if we really want to be happy permanently in this world, even though the world is temporary, that permanence only comes through spiritual devotional service. There is no other way. That's why Kapila Dev tells his mother, Na karhinchin matparaha shantarupe nang shanti no me nimisho ledhi hetihi yeshamaham priya adma sutascha sakha guru suhridam daivamishtam. Kapila Dev says so nicely in the 3rd canto, I think it's in the 25th chapter, and there in that shloka he says that, my dear mother, please know one thing. This devotional service that you have, that everybody has access to, this devotional service can never be destroyed by time, nor can it be destroyed by any weapon. Everything else in this world will be destroyed by time, and nothing will last. Actually, it is good that nothing lasts. Imagine if you were married to someone forever. At least there's an end, isn't it? Imagine if you had this. Imagine if Sandeep Prabhu and Mataji had this program. Now it'll go on forever. We're just going to be here. After a while, they tell us we have to leave. Nothing can go on forever, and that is the good news in this world. So therefore, only devotional service will continue with you. When this body is left behind, when all your karmas continue in whichever way they are, even the karmas are finished eventually. But the devotional service is never finished, never extinguished. It's very important. And why the devotional service is never extinguished? Yesham aham priya atma sutascha. The devotees of the Lord, they have a loving relationship with the Lord. That's why Sandeep Prabhu and Mataji have called us today, because of their loving relationship with the deity. They could easily have had a program very quietly amongst themselves, and they could have said, why should we invite the devotees? But they are inviting the devotees because they want the blessings of the devotees, so that they can worship the deity. And they also want the deity to be glorified, because that is the nature of devotees. Devotees don't want to glorify themselves, but they always want to glorify the Lord, and they want to glorify other devotees. This is the behavior of a devotee. So in Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, again Kapila Dev, 29th chapter, 8th shloka. Very quickly I will read it, and it's very interesting. Kapila Dev is talking to his mother, and he says, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 I will chant the shloka. If you have it with you, you can chant with me also. 3:29a. Abhisandhaya yohimsam dambham matsaryameva va samrambhi binna drigbhavam mayi kuryat satamasaha Abhisandhaya yohimsam dambham matsaryameva va samrambhi binna drigbhavam mayi kuryat satamasaha Abhisandhaya yohimsam dambham matsaryameva va samrambhi binna drigbhavam mayi kuryat satamasaha Abhisandhaya, having in view, yaha, he who, himsam, violence, dambam, pride, matsaryam, envy, eva, indeed, va, or, samrambhi, angry, binna, separate, drak, whose vision, bhavam, devotional service, mayi, to me, kuryat, may do, saha, he, tamasaha, in the mode of ignorance. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Please repeat the translation. Devotional service executed by a person who is envious, proud, violent, and angry, and who is a separatist, is considered to be in the mode of darkness. Please hear the purport. It has already been stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 2nd chapter, that the highest, most glorious religion is the attainment of causeless, unmotivated devotional service. So this is what we should be doing. Our mood is that we should worship Krishna without any cause. There shouldn't be a reason for us to worship Krishna. Very often the reason is material. Krishna, I want this, I want that, I don't want this, I don't want that. But causeless means without any reason, material, we should turn to Krishna. You know, in this material world, if you had a friend who loved you just for loving you, that is a true friend. If you have someone who loves you because they want something from you, then that's always transactional. So the word Prabhupada is using here is causeless, unmotivated devotional service. Now let's continue. In pure devotional service, the only motive should be to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So whatever we do, Prabhus and Matajis, the point is, we should always ask ourselves this question as devotees. Will my action please Krishna? Before you say something to a devotee, if you're angry with a devotee, you're upset with the devotee, before you say something, you should ask yourself seriously, if I'm going to say something to him or her, will that benefit them? Will it please Krishna that I'm doing it? These two questions will guide your devotional service. It's very important. Then Prabhupada goes on, that in pure devotional service, the only motive should be to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada says, that is not actually a motive. That is the pure condition of the living entity. In the conditioned state, when one engages in devotional service, he should follow the instruction of the bona fide spiritual master in full surrender. The spiritual master is the manifested representation of the Supreme Lord because he receives and presents the instructions of the Lord as they are by disciplic succession. It is described in Bhagavad Gita that the teachings therein should be received by disciplic succession. Otherwise, there is adulteration. That is why when we come to bhakti, we don't do things just whimsically. We don't think that I should just worship Krishna any which way I want. There is a way to worship Krishna. And that way to worship Krishna is given to us through parampara. A disciple of a spiritual master, the spiritual master is a disciple of a spiritual master, and that is how we receive this knowledge. When you receive this knowledge in the tradition where there is no deviation, then the knowledge is pure. But nowadays, we are so exposed to social media. that you get all kinds of nonsense coming. It's just floating in the air. People give you this advice, that advice, people even quote. But when you check the Shastra, that quote is not even there. Some people use AI and give you something on Krishna. But you will realize that AI falters very badly when it comes to spiritual knowledge. Because AI is completely material. So therefore, we have to understand that if you want to really take up the path of devotion, please follow parampara. Take it from authorized sources. That is very important. That's what Prabhupada is saying. Now Prabhupada says, to act under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master with a motive to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pure devotional service. So if we take our spiritual masters seriously, they can be Diksha or they can even be Siksha. Someone whom you look up to and you're following instructions, that is your Siksha Guru. But if you must follow them, follow their instructions in such a way with always only one motive, to please Krishna. And that's what we must do. But now Prabhupada makes an important point for today. But if one has a motive for personal sense gratification, his devotional service is manifested differently. You know, sometimes you have a disease. People may not know what disease you have, but an intelligent person will see the symptoms of the disease and they will say, from your symptoms you are suffering this and this. In the same way, we may all look like devotees, but Prabhupada is saying, based on our behavior, from our behavior, people can come to know and we can come to know, if we have the eyes and the heart to accept it, that actually we are not actually behaving as we should, or that our devotional service is not unmotivated. And Prabhupada gives the example. Such a man means not just man, women also. Such a man or women, right, may be violent, proud, envious and angry. 4 things. So these are the 4 enemies of devotional service. Sometimes we may think devotees are not violent. Nobody is kicking each other, punching each other. But violence doesn't have to be physical. Violence can very often be mental. We can think ill thoughts about someone. We can criticize someone in our hearts and they don't even know it. But that is violence, because we are trying to find fault with them. So the moment we criticize devotees, we are actually exercising violence in our heart. It's a very important point that sometimes we forget. So that is the first point, violent. Second, for those who are criticizing others, they are violent, but the reason for their criticism is because in their hearts, they sincerely think that I'm a better person than he is. That's why I have the adhikar to find fault with you. So you see, there's a link between violence and pride. If there is an absence of pride, there will not be the mood to criticize. You will always have the mood to learn from someone. You may be inquisitive why someone is doing something, but the mood is not to find criticism, but really to genuinely inquire, why are you doing it this way? I'm not finding fault with you, but I want to know. That's different. That's not violence. So if there is no pride, there is no violence. This is a very important point. And the third thing that Prabhupada says is, where there is pride, another symptom of pride will always be that we are envious of others. When we are jealous of someone or envious, we find that, someone is doing better than us. Then we try to find fault with the person. We try to bring down the person. Remember Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj, he gave a story of this boy called Pencho in Bengal. Right? He was a young boy in a village and he used to play with all his friends. They used to jump into the river with no clothes and then they will come out like little boys do. One day somehow this young boy, studied well, did very well and became a lawyer, and then he was promoted to become a judge in the court of Calcutta. Now when the villagers heard it, someone came and told them, this boy Pencho from your village, he has become a judge. And all the villagers, because of their envy, they said, how can it be possible he can become judge? Maybe he's become judge, but they're not paying him salary. People talk like that, They do. And then they said, no, he's being paid salary. And then they said, how can he become judge? Because when he was a young boy, he was running around naked with no clothes. So how can he become a judge? Now, what has that got to do with becoming judge? You see? So actually, we have seen this happen. Sometimes if we are not careful, we also do the same thing. One thing has nothing to do with the other, but we are just trying to find fault somewhere, just to find fault. There's another story that's interesting. There was a river, and the river is running downwards. Now there's a tiger at the top, and there's a goat at the bottom. Goat is natural food for tiger, right? So tiger was there, and he was thinking now how to eat the goat. There must be some reason for me. So then the tiger approached the goat and said, goat was drinking water, and said, you are now contaminating the water that I am going to drink. And the goat said, my dear tiger, river is flowing downward. You are drinking from up there, and then the water comes to me. So how is it that I am actually contaminating your water? And the tiger ate the goat. So this is how we find so many ways to find fault with people. And we do it because of envy. We do it because of pride. And the result of that is we become violent. Violence, pride, and envy. And the result of all that is we become angry. And that's why Prabhupada says, when we have all of these four, we may look like devotee. We may even act sometimes like devotee. But the moment the programs are finished, all these true colors come out. Sometimes not in program. If we meet persons one-to-one, suddenly we say, hey, this devotee is very different from in the program. In the program, chanting, dancing. But after that, something is happening. Most of the time, these problems happen during festivals. During festivals, devotees become Narsingadev. Sometimes they become Hiranyakashipu. All this happens, and not because they are in the drama, mind you. This is just normal. Just normal movement. So that's where we really see who the devotees are and who the non-devotees are who appear to be devotees. And Prabhupada has one more point here. The interest of the devotee is separate from the Lord. This is very important. Sometimes we come to the devotional programs because we have some motive, but they are not aligned with pleasing the Lord. Laddu Gopal is here. Are we living our life in such a way that our interest is aligned with his interests? Then we should keep the deity. Sometimes we go to houses and there is no deity. We have this Amazon Krishna. Have you seen the Amazon Krishna? It's very famous now. If you go into Amazon and just Google or type search statue of Krishna, you see a nice statue. And in so many houses you go for programs, that is the only thing of Krishna they have. They don't even have a murti of Krishna. It's an Amazon Krishna. And they put it there for the program, and after program you never see the Krishna because they don't worship Krishna. They just put him there because you have a program. How can your interest be aligned with the interests of the Lord when he's just a showpiece in your house? There's no worship of him, just a showpiece. So that is very sad. Now, Prabhupada ends the purport. One who approaches the Supreme Lord to render devotional service, but who is proud of his personality, envious of others, or vengeful is in the mode of anger. He thinks, this is the key, he thinks that he's the best devotee. And this is very dangerous. We should genuinely start thinking carefully that we are not the best devotee. If anyone thinks I'm not even best, I'm better devotee than someone, there is also a problem actually. Devotional service, Prabhupada says, executed in this way is not pure. It is mixed and is of the lowest grade tamasaha. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur advises that a Vaishnava who is not of good character should be avoided. A Vaishnava is one who has taken the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the ultimate goal of life. But if one is not pure and still has motives, then he is not a Vaishnava of the first order of good character. One may offer his respects to such a Vaishnava because he has accepted Supreme God as the ultimate goal of life. But one should not keep company with a Vaishnava who is in the mode of ignorance. So our acharyas are very practical. They are giving us a very deep point about how we should even interact with each other as devotees. Sometimes if we are interacting with each other on a social plane, all these problems will come. Because in social plane, there is anger, there is envy, there is separatism. And very often, the goal is never pure. There's some motive to the goal. And very often, we mix up bhakti with piety. Piety means I'm doing all this because I want punya. It'll be good. Now Prabhu invited me, I'll come for the program, have prasadam, plenty of punya will come. my child will go into a good school, my husband will get a better job. This is not devotional service. This is just transaction. This is punya. Don't mix up punya with bhakti. Bhakti has nothing to do with all of this. Bhakti is pure. It is very, very pure, very special. And Srila Prabhupada defined bhakti as going to a goldsmith shop and there are diamonds and there is gold. 90% of people, Prabhupada said, will go to gold. But very few will be able to afford or even appreciate diamonds. Bhakti is a diamond. Not everyone can appreciate it. And very often people will mix it up, thinking that it is piety. So if we are coming for these programs to accumulate good brownie points for good karma, then we are doing it wrongly. And then we may be thinking, why there is no bhakti growing in my heart? Why is it I cannot chant well? Why is it I'm not able to complete my rounds? Why is it I'm not able to be consistent in my bhakti? These are the reasons. Nothing to do with Laddu Gopal. Laddu Gopal is Laddu Gopal. He's very happy. He's ready to give you mercy. But Krishna says, Ye yata mam prapadyante. To the extent that you surrender, to that extent he will actually reciprocate. So if your surrender is motivated, then only a limited mercy will come to us. Remember, rain is pouring on land which is barren, and it is pouring on land which is fertile. Rain is rain, it is pouring equally. But the land which is barren can never reap the effects of good rain because it is barren. But the land which is fertile will reap the effects even of a little rain. So that land is our heart. If our heart is barren and filled with motive, envy, anger, if it's filled with pride, if it's filled with separatist tendency, then that land, that soil is barren. And the root of Krishna consciousness cannot take place. But if the land is fertile, because our heart is humble, we are not angry, we are always peaceful. We are never envious, but we are well-wishers of everyone. And we are never separatists from Krishna. Whatever Krishna wants is what we want. Then our land becomes very fertile. And all the water will pour very nicely. This is a very important point. I think some of us there, the other day, Advaita Prabhu, you were there, a few of us we were in Sadhu Aswani Center the other day, and we normally sing there in Sadhu Aswani Center. And Sadhu Aswani himself is a very exalted personality. And there was a question-answer session. And in that question-answer session, someone asked him this question. And I was really struck by the alignment of all these great personalities. Someone asked him this question that sometimes people come for satsangs, but they come based on their ego. They don't come because they want to actually take darshan of the Lord and glorify the Lord. So what happens to such people then, And Sadhu Aswani said something nice. He said something really nice. He said that in the Sufi religion and the Sufi tradition, there was a very famous Sufi. And he was very young when he was with his father. And one day they went to a mosque. And they were supposed to stay overnight and fast. And everyone was supposed to keep awake. Like sometimes we have our ceremonies where we stay awake also. So the boy was sitting there and watching with his father. And so many people came at the start of the night. But slowly, one by one, they went to sleep. They could not keep the vow of staying up. Finally, even the priest, the mullah, he himself went to sleep. So this boy, who would grow up to be a very great Sufi saint, he turned to his father and said, "See, father, everybody has gone to sleep. Only we are awake." And the father turned to him and said something interesting. He said that, "Son, if you are watching for who is sleeping, and if you're very proud that you are awake, better you also go to sleep. Because there is absence of ego if you sleep. But if you stay awake for the whole night and you have ego now in your heart that I've stayed awake, then you've missed the whole point of staying awake." And that is how we should worship the deities. The deities should be worshipped in such a way that they don't become repositories of our ego. Our devotional service should be performed in such a way that they do not become vessels for our ego. They should be performed in such a way that they become actually lotuses on which we can actually put our service to the Vaishnavas and to the deities. That is why we are here. And that is why we should continue to be in devotional service. It's very important. I want to end by remembering one shloka from Lord Brahma. Brahma says this point very nicely. It is in the 3rd canto, 9th chapter, 23rd verse. Esha prapanna varado ramaya ramayatma satya yad yad karishyati grahita gunavatara tasmin swavikrama idam srijatopi cheto yunjita karma shamalam chayata vijayam. When you have time, look at it. 3:9:23. Brahma is telling to Krishna, just before he's beginning to create, his prayers for creative energy, he says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is my benefactor. So Laddu Gopal today, he is the person who is our benefactor. Whatever Aishwarya is coming, whatever good that is coming, whatever that is not even good that is coming, that is also Aishwarya from Krishna. That is also meant to purify us. He is the benefactor of the surrendered souls. The more we surrender, the more Krishna gives benefit, spiritual benefit. Then he says, his activities are always coming from his internal potency, Rama, the goddess of fortune. Normally we turn to Lakshmi Devi or Rama because we want money, we want a new house, we want prosperity. But Brahma is saying that what he wants is spiritual purity, and it is coming from the goddess of fortune. Then now his prayer should be our prayer. I pray only to engage in his service in the creation of the material world. So Brahma is saying, if at all I have to create, it is not because of my creation and not the growing of my ego, but I should create in his service. So whatever that we are doing now should be in his service. And then he says, Krishna, I pray that I not be materially affected by my work. So important. That should be our prayer. And he says at last point, for thus I may be able to give up the false prestige of being a creator. So we must be very careful whenever we worship the deities, that we should really think about these things. Contemplation. This is why we worship the deities. This is why we have the sadhu sangha, so that we start thinking about these things deeper and not just in a superficial manner. Otherwise, we'll always take for granted, we're coming for program, we will hear kirtan, we will dance, we will sing, and then of course plenty of prasadam is there, Haribol. No. We should think after the program, am I changing my behavior? Am I making improvement to my devotional service? Is there something that I'm lacking that I should work on? This is the mood of a devotee. Otherwise, why come for the program? It becomes like Diwali, it becomes like some ritual that you do, and we go back and you come back and once a year we meet, Haribol. No, that should not be the case. So remember one thing, when you take up bhakti, please don't come. I get very scared when devotees come and see me and I said, Prabhu, how are you doing? Prabhu, everything is very nice. I got a promotion last week. By Krishna's mercy, my child entered NUS. By Krishna's mercy, my wife is doing very well. That is not what I asked. I am asking you, how is your devotional service? That's it. So you have to see the hand of Krishna in that way. Very important. You know Narsin Mehta, great saint from Gujarat, right? His wife passed away. And it was very sudden. He went to Krishna and said, Krishna, thank you very much. He said, thank you because by putting me in great grief, I have to remember you because you are my only shelter. All this time I thought my wife is my eternal companion. But today you are my only shelter. Thank you, Krishna. Then from Maharashtra, you know the famous saint Ekanath. Ekanath's wife was very cooperative. And he went to Krishna and he said, thank you, Krishna, because my wife is really teaching me how to be devotee. And he was thankful. And then you must remember Tukaram. Tukaram's wife was wife from hell. She was tough wife, isn't it? And he went to Krishna every time and said, thank you very much for giving me such a wife. Because by giving her to me, you're always forcing me to surrender to you. Because where else can I go for happiness except at your lotus feet? So I don't know what Sandeep Prabhu and Mataji are praying every time they come to Laddu Gopal. But by their activities, we come to know that they are very sincere in devotional service. They have taken this process up so nicely. And we should always be grateful that we have devotees like them in our congregation. So this is the mood in which we should. So please, the next time we ask each other, how are you doing? Please don't go through the list of all these things. When Vasudev and Nanda Maharaj met each other, the question Vasudev asked Nanda Maharaj asked Vasudev was, how is your quest for devotional service? How is your spiritual journey continuing? That is what we should ask each other. When Vaishyas meet Vaishyas, they talk about stock market because they are in the Vaishya business. When Kshatriyas meet each other, hey, how many warriors did you kill? How many battles did you win? They talk to each other that way. When Brahmanas and devotees meet each other, they speak to each other about, what did you read about Bhagavatam? Can you share shloka with me? Or how is our chanting going? And is there any pastime of Krishna you can share with me? When Shudras meet each other, they say, hey, how are you? And that is very dangerous. So we should really ask ourselves why we are in the business of devotional service. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai. Srila Gurudev ki. Jai. Pitai Gaura Premanjana. Are there any comments, realizations? Sanjay Prabhu.
Yeah, Prabhu, it is the frequency of devotion which is important, or obviously the purity is, or will the frequency of devotion lead to the purity?
Very nice question. What is the relationship between the frequency of devotion and the purity of devotion? Frequency is a very important component to lead us to purity, because frequency is the next door neighbor to consistency. When you are frequent, but if you are haphazard, that doesn't help. But if you're frequent and consistent, that goes a long way in devotional service, because Prabhu, it takes a lot for someone to be consistently worshipping the Lord. In the beginning you may do it as a ritual, but people tire of it. But if you're really invested in Krishna and you keep being consistent, every morning 5 a.m. you wake up, you greet Krishna, you chant Krishna's names, you're frequent about that, you're consistent about that. Krishna himself will give you in your heart, right, the ability to get revealed knowledge from him and the taste of bhakti. But what is also important as you do things consistently is to make sure it doesn't become ritualistic. Many Brahmanas do it very consistently also, but they have turned it into a ritual. And they think it's like a business, I have to do it. And sometimes they do it because they think if I don't do it, the punya is not there. So consistency is good, but intention must follow consistency. Every morning before you start, ask yourself contemplatively why you are doing this. Before you start chanting japa, ask yourself or reaffirm to yourself, Krishna, this is why I want to do japa. Please give me the proper consciousness so that I can glorify you. That prayer will be very helpful. Is that helpful? Very nice question. Anything else? Yes, Mataji. This is a husband-wife team. Priyanka, Mataji. Yes.
Is devotion and detachment universally proportional? Because I was reading the Indian Sutras by Rajmohan Das, and over there it's written that detachment is very important for personal growth and happiness. So the more you get detached from the world, is that equivalent to getting more?
Very good point. You see, it comes down to the principle of where there's a vacuum, something will fill it up. The problem sometimes with detachment without devotion, Mataji, is that when you try to just become detached from something in what we call an artificial manner, for example, you pull yourself out of something, but if you don't substitute that detachment which creates a vacuum with devotional service, the detachment becomes dry. And very often you find that you can't sustain that detachment. You fill it up with something else. So therefore, devotional service should start. And devotional service should be done on the strength of detachment. In fact, Bhagavatam tells us if you perform devotional service sincerely, detachment and knowledge come automatically. They are like byproducts that come immediately when you do nice devotional service. So you should be aware that detachment is important. But the goal is always to be devoted to Krishna. If you are devoted to Krishna, then automatically you'll understand Krishna is the one supreme entity and I'm watering the root of the tree. Everything else will fall in place. And that itself is a kind of detachment. Because you don't then invest so much energy in things that ultimately don't really matter. But you invest that energy with Krishna. That is devotional service. But you will see laced with that is actually the concept of detachment. You see, they're going hand in hand. But the first D is an important D, devotional service. Detachment will follow. Yes, Mataji.
So, how do you make sure that you're detached, but at the same time you have so many responsibilities?
Yes. So, if you are performing devotional service, then you'll understand that everything that has been given to you by Krishna is His mercy. You'll also understand that nothing belongs to you, but everything belongs to Krishna. That's devotional service. Then you will serve your husbands and you will serve husband, children and everything that you have in the correct perspective. Instead of seeing that they belong to you, you will understand that they were sent to you by Krishna. And therefore it is your duty to serve them to the best of your ability. So that way your lenses change. When you think the children belong to you, you will impose. When you think husband belongs to you, you will seek to impose. But when you remember that they are given to you by Krishna, they are not your property, then you will serve them. The mood becomes very different. Very different. Someone else said, yes, Mataji.
Okay, as you were explaining that when we leave our body, only our bhakti goes with it. Our karmas, they
Our karmas will come, but eventually they will be finished or extinguished. But bhakti remains.
When we say that when somebody gets next birth and we say that this is as per your previous karma.
Yes.
Then is it that the karmas are coming into the next?
Because they haven't finished. You see, as long as we are living here and we don't do devotional service, then every action has a resultant reaction. That reaction is karma. So as long as we are bereft of devotional service, we'll continuously be engaged in the cycle of karma. And because of our irresponsibility of not becoming devotees, we will prolong our karmas life after life after life. So that's why when we take up devotional service, our karmas become extinguished very automatically. They become purified. And then eventually the karmas stop. So therefore devotional service is considered supreme because it has the purity to neutralize or annihilate your karmas eventually. Otherwise, even if you go to the moon, Mataji, your karmas will follow you. They will not let you go. I'll give you a good example and we can end the discussion. Dasharath Maharaj, such an exalted king and a devotee of Lord Ram, his son. Yet towards the end of his life, he had to suffer the burden of not being with his son and separated from him. And that night when Lord Ram left the room and Dasharath was alone, he then turned to Kausalya, who was with him, and told him that I cannot blame anyone ultimately for my situation because I have brought this upon myself. Many years ago, when I was still a prince, I accidentally killed a young man thinking that he was an elephant. And when I saw that my arrow had killed him, I tried my best to actually try to serve his parents who were blind and dependent on him. But when they knew, because I told them that I had actually killed their son by mistake, the father said, if you had not honestly told me this, I would have made you perish now. But because you were honest about it, you will have to pay for this. And the time when your time comes, when you are old and you are also dependent on someone, the same way our son was taken away from us, your son will also be taken away from you. So at that point of time, Dasharath could understand that the power of his karma was coming before him. But Ramayana tells us a very important point. Even though the karma was very heavy on Dasharath, because of his pure devotion to Lord Ram, he kept chanting Rama, 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 Rama through the night. And before dawn came, just before dawn came, he left his body in complete remembrance of Lord Ram. Therefore, that episode proves to us that karmas may be very strong, but bhakti will always prevail. It will always prevail. Is that helpful, Mataji? Yes, Prabhu.
Actually, when you were saying that karma never ends, what about the cycle of karma and dharma? Because like when your karma is used, it will be someone else's dharma.
No. Your karma is your karma. Dharma is different from karma. Dharma essentially means what is your duty. That is very important. Right now, are you a student?
Yeah.
Therefore, your dharma is to be a good student. Are you a son?
Yes.
Then you have to be a good son. Are you a friend to someone?
Yeah.
Then you have to be a good friend. Now, if you're not any of these, then your karmas are not good. That is the relationship between dharma and karma. But bhakti transcends this. And therefore, if you become a good devotee, you'll automatically become a good friend, a good son, and a good student. Hopefully. Okay? So that's the thing you have to look out for. Thank you, Prabhu Smart.